All right, welcome folks. I thought I was brilliant and I thought I figured out how to get Zoom to show my face during this on an iPad, no less, but the audio didn't work. So here we are, you just get to hear me talk. Today, we're gonna chat about AI code review tools and why I'm terrified for their future. And we're also gonna touch on some similar tools in the kind of coding AI space, and that is about it. I'm gonna show you a demo because I try to show, the tech I'm talking about, but without further ado, let's get into it. So the product today is Codeball AI Review. So the way I choose my products is I have 400 products bookmarked, and every week I get sent a random one. I'm going to make it smarter, but for now it's random. And the random one this week was Codeball AI Code Review. It is dead. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but I'm going to really review CodeRabbit and show you what that looks like. So before I do that, I want to just talk about Codeball though. I think this little quote here says a lot. Codeball approves pull requests that a human would have approved. Now, this is both why I think starting an AI PR review company is a great idea and a terrible idea. Okay, so AI is all about training data, right? You really need tons of ideally kind of annotated. What does that mean? Annotated training data. That is training data with some sense of meaning behind it, right? So in this case, you want to understand quality of code, okay? And there is a decent proxy for PRs, right? So if the PR gets approved, that means the code was probably good, right? And if the comment on the PR got lots of interaction, that means it's probably interesting, right? And probably useful. These are proxies. They're, of course, not truths, but you can start to look at patterns here, all right? So you have annotated training data, and you also have a ton of training data because of this open source movement, right? And GitHub has an open API. So you have a lot of training data here, which is a really good spot to move into. Now, that said, everyone has access to that training data for now, right? And some companies have way more training data than others. For example, GitHub has all the public repositories out there, but also all the private ones. I think they're probably allowed to train on your code. I don't know the terms of service, but in theory, they have access to a lot more annotated data, okay? Now, I was reading Daring Fireball the other day, and I think it made a really good point, which is that this AI PR code review company is facing a similar problem as just all AI companies, specifically those that produce LLM, which are large language models, okay? This is quickly becoming commoditized. He compared this kind of space to C compilers back in the 80s, okay? Cool, you have a super fast C compiler, but it's very easy to get there, right? So this took a huge lift to get to, these LLMs, and it was a groundbreaking innovation when GPT-3 came out, right? But now we have really great open source models. I'm trying to think of why else there's a moat. We have really great open source models, right? And the quality difference between these AI bots is not that different. So with Codeball, I think their Achilles heel was probably the training set's great, but everyone has access to it. And big companies have more access than you. And then also you're using LLMs, which are quickly becoming commodified, right? And you can't compete on cost. You can't really compete on quality. Thus, you die out, right? So they were really fun. This is a really fun idea. I think it's really cool. And I think it is worth digging into. And so one little thing of proof here about this commoditization and the low moats, the lack of moats, is look, they were able to onboard TikTok, Athenian, KiteMaker, all these big companies, and disappeared within the day because these are pretty replaceable. There's very little stickiness here, right? What does it matter which AI powered code review tool you're using, right? Well, you're probably going to go with what's most convenient, which is why I think GitHub is just watching here and is going to wipe everyone out. I do think it's interesting that GitHub did CoPilot first, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But let's show you a real surviving product. So this is called CodeRabbit. They do the same thing. And so I don't have any pull requests because I am the only coder. But this is the repository I configured. I think it's interesting to just look at their options. So I think it's great to have a high-level summary. I would love this at work. Poem is funny, not super useful. I don't know what this collapse does. I think the automated chat replies is where this is really funny because, oh goodness, I think I deleted the tab, but someone on Y Combinator or Hacker News was talking about the back and forth you can have with these. So the PR bot said you should add tests, and the human said, I don't need them. This is a small function. And they said, oh, you're right. That's good. And it was really funny because it's like I've had that conversation with people, and that's exactly how a software developer would interact, but it's wrong. Like that's the interesting thing about these tools is they've learned on real data of real software developers, right? And so they're flawed like software developers are. So that's kind of fun with the chat replies. You can also request changes, which is interesting. This would mean it blocks you from merging a PR. So I don't know how I feel about that. But there's some fun integrations here. I think this is smart. One thing I just want to note is this website's kind of not great. Like these design elements, like I don't like that they overlap, right? Let's see what the subscription is. I don't know what this is. I'm curious how much this is. I bet it's very cheap. Oh, 15 monthly. Interesting. That's more than I thought it would be because this is really expensive. So I don't know how I feel about this. But anyhow, this is my repo. So I have 0 pull requests, 0 actionable items. I tried really quickly to do a pull request and it didn't pick it up. So that's probably a user error. All right. So this is the AI PR companies, right? I think what's interesting to dig into is a couple other types of company, right? So I think there's 2 I want to point out. One is Sonar Cloud. All right, so Sonar Cloud does. Let's see. This is Sonar Cloud for my project. This is like analysis of existing code, right? It's really thinking about code quality, right? So this is kind of like the PR review tool. This is the AI PR review tool before LLMs launched, right? So it's trying to talk to me about like consistency problems, intentionality problems. Yeah, I'm using Boolean literals and a conditional expression, right? Very specific, very drilled down, very like technically focused, right? And it's actionable and it's good and it runs on every PR, but this is it's more difficult to interact with than CodeRabbit. I will give it that. It makes it this is like a step back from that, right? So this often happens to the CI/CD pipeline, which runs on every commit. So these PR review bots are running on every commit, but only on a PR. Sonar Cloud is running on every commit. And then the last set of tools I want to talk about is GitHub CoPilot, which is running before all of this. And I will say Sonar Cloud can run in your IDE. So it can run as you code, but it's telling you what you've done wrong rather than making recommendations. And that's kind of what I think is interesting about GitHub Copilot and CodeRabbit is it's making recommendations, whereas Sonar Cloud is just analyzing your code, right? Kind of after the fact. So I love Copilot. I think it's really, really useful. I get a lot out of it. I don't have it for my personal projects and I really miss it. And so I think eventually, if these AI code review things catch on, GitHub will just take Copilot and jam it into their like repos, which I think is brilliant and will probably result in the death of all of these AI pull review companies. I'm surprised Tab 9, which is a Copilot alternative, is still kicking. Yeah, it's very interesting. I would love to see OpenAI move more directly into this space, but this is where Microsoft is in a really good position. They own VS Code, they own GitHub, and they can make some really tight integrations between the two, where OpenAI would have to really break ground So I've also seen some like AI IDEs try to pop up, and those have not worked. So this is a tough space, and GitHub is in a really good position. The last thing I want to touch on, though, and just a prediction I want to make, I think that we are going to see a huge... I think the tipping point for GitHub to get involved here is we're going to see a huge... This person made a great comment about sending, like, all of a sudden we're sending all of our code bases to AI companies. They used to be more secretive. I think we're going to see a huge security breach in one of these companies. I think we're going to see a huge security breach in an LLM creating company. And I think it's going to push to more traditional players. So I think it's unfortunate, but we're going to see at some point some consolidation in this market. And I think CodeRabbit is probably going to go the way of Codeball, and GitHub is going to step into the space. So I love the product. I think it's fun. I think it's really useful to get kind of human descriptions of PRs, because it's hard to understand PRs, especially if there's lots of changes. I will probably start using a tool like this in my own code. But my prediction long term is that this is going to consolidate really quickly. So thank you for joining me, folks, and have a wonderful day.